Oh, I got to be stuck in front of your computer. Oh, sorry.
Nah, if you go off that way, it's fine. All right, we are live. And I got the notification, so I know it's true.
It's great to be with you guys again. Kind of want to maybe just give a little bit of update and let you know what's been happening. Although if most of you don't remember me, then it'll all be new. Make sure I get to this is the row of youth, I'm guessing mainly. Any of you remember us from last year? A little bit, okay. My name is John. That is Nancy and Sarah in the back. Should have you come up here so they can see you, but no. Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Don't do it. But we are missionaries in Mexico, specifically just outside the city of Cancun. And we live in a village called El Milagro, which, anybody speak Spanish? What's that mean?
Katya, what's it mean?
The miracle, yeah. And actually our village has two halves. One is El Milagro, the other is La Esperanza, the hope. So I always say that I think it's so cool. With every street in our village is named after a country in the world. The main street is Mexico, and then you name the country, it's there. So it's kind of cool. We literally live amongst the nations, and this year for us has been crazy, just as it's been for you. Normally, I teach English at a junior high in our village, but since March, that basically stopped. Not sure what's going to happen when we get back from this trip. Right now, it's definitely not happening. I was telling Joe and Quinn, I can't remember if there's anybody else that was there. I don't think you had come in yet when we started talking about how the students there are doing their classes. Are you guys doing face-to-face or all online? Homeschooled is always face-to-face, right? Doing online? So down there, at least right now, they do on TV. So because they can't guarantee that every student has access to internet or to a computer. And so they literally have a TV channel. This TV channel from this time to this time is for second grade. From this time to this time is for third grade. The problem is when you have families with multiple children, different grades, there's overlap, and you only have one TV in your house if you only have one TV. So I'm not sure how that's all going. We're kind of afraid that as bad as education can be there, it's going to take an even bigger hit right now. But just praying that maybe some of that stuff will go back to normal soon. It would be nice. We have a system there of red, orange, yellow, green. We hit green and schools can go back. We're not sure to what capacity, but we're at yellow right now, so we'll see. But it's been a crazy year for us as well. We normally have a children's ministry and youth ministry, and that's all kind of had to been put on hold. But at the same time, it's been one of the greatest moments for our congregation and their personal growth with the Lord, because we're in the village, we're outside of the city, so it's not like we have people checking on us all the time. Are you wearing masks? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And we have a small church family. It's our family and 5 other families right now. And so we just continue to meet on Sundays, continue to just do worship, continue to teach the word. And then on Wednesdays, we have a Bible study that it's been really great because the men of the church a lot of times weren't able to make it on Wednesdays because of their work schedules. Well, none of them were working. So they were able to be there, and it was really a time for discipleship and to really get into the Word. We've been doing an in-depth study in Romans, walking through the book of Romans. Most of the people in our church is new to them, or just being not just church, but being a follower of Christ is new to them. So really felt challenged to really take them deep into the Word. And so that's been great. We just had a family of 3, and then 2 brothers from another family that were baptized just before we came back here. So that was pretty exciting. And, you know, the greatest thing in all of this is just to continuously see how God has provided and put things in order. Last year in January or in December, I felt God saying that in January I was supposed to start a series on fear. And I really struggled with him on that. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. You know, beginning of the year, usually that's not the theme that you would take. You would like, let's kind of maybe look backwards. Let's then look forward and let's see what God wants us to do. But I couldn't get away from it and just felt God saying, no, you need to do a teaching on fear. And so literally January and February and the beginning part of March, I did this whole about 8-week teaching on fear, different aspects of it, why we fear, things we fear. And then we went to, because every 6 months we need to leave to renew our visas. And so we actually went to Mississippi for a couple of weeks, and that's when COVID hit. While we were in Mississippi, we were like a little worried for a while that we wouldn't be able to get back to Mexico. But thankfully they just closed the ground borders and that you can still fly in. But understanding now why God had me teach on fear those months prior to COVID hitting, because when it did hit, the people were strong in their faith and they understood more. Hey, we don't have to live in fear. We don't have to think this way. And the reality of it is the Mexican culture is very fearful. It tends to be just a fearful culture in general. That's why I think that Spiritism can be so strong, and they dabble with witchcraft and they dabble with a little bit, because we're in part of the Caribbean as well, a little bit with voodoo, which is the same as witchcraft. It's just a different title. And then with the Mayan religion and stuff too, that's there mixed into the Latino Catholicism. In general, they tend to live in fear, and they have different superstitions that they do. I mean, even with their babies, there's, Sarah, what's that one that if you say something about their child, like you give a compliment to the baby, say, oh, your baby's so beautiful, you have to touch the baby then. Because if you don't, it's like you're putting a curse on that baby because you're jealous of that baby's beauty. And yeah. So and then they also have this other superstition where they'll wear like a red string, and that's to basically protect you and ward off bad things from happening to you. And this is just culture in general. And so it's really good for us to be able to take our people and kind of walk them through what it means to not live in fear. And we don't have to be fearful, especially as followers of Christ. And then to see them grow in that. When we were gone in March and we came back to begin to do this teaching through Romans and walk them through Romans and to watch them grow in their faith. So it really has been a good time. Frustrating at times just because, the same frustrations you have. Like I don't like wearing the mask. And down there it's 100 degrees. So here we're kind of like, hey, these masks are helpful to us because our noses are cold and we'll put them on and we don't breathe in the cold air. Because this is cold to us, like we are freezing. But so little things like that. But all in all, I think God has really shown up and done some great things within our bodies. So it's real encouraging. I'm excited to see what the future holds. A couple of the men in the church, I'm really feeling that God's preparing them to really step into some teaching giftings. And one of them is leading Bible studies while we're gone. And so I'm excited to see what happens. There's a young man he's 10 years old, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be preaching sooner than what he could even imagine. He loves the Word of God, and he just consumes it, reads it, and he always wants to, hey, can I read? I always say, who wants to read some scripture to me? He's like, hand up, I'll do it. But seeing him rub off even on a couple of the other boys that are in our congregation to where it's almost like, oh, I didn't get to read today, or can I read the next one? Can I read the next one? So, and I kind of want to talk to you guys about that aspect a little bit today. in Matthew chapter 5. You have your Bibles with you. You got phones, right? If you don't have the Bible app on your phone, you're a loser. No, but you should really, it makes it very convenient. It makes it very convenient. You have no excuses, and what's really cool is you can pull up whatever translation you want, and do a lot of studying. But really, I have a simple word for you guys today. And maybe, Joe, what time does this wrap up? I want to be courteous of that as well. 6:45. Okay. If there's some time left, if you guys have any questions, we can do some questions and stuff. Sometimes we don't always get that opportunity, and I know sometimes question and answer goes, because nobody wants to talk or whatever. But I want to just share with you out of Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 13. Probably familiar verses to you, but I really feel that this is a moment that you need to hear these words from Jesus. It says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. And neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." First thing it talks about here is that you are the salt. And again, I know this is probably a verse that Pastor Joe has taught on at different moments. But salt is an important aspect. When you think back to the times of Jesus, salt had more purpose than it does now. I mean, now people are telling you don't use salt because it's bad for you. But the reality of it is salt, when it's used correctly, is a very good thing, and it's a very necessary thing. Anybody like to cook at all? Now, when you're cooking, when do you use salt? A lot of times people only use salt when at the table, after everything's cooked. You should be using it while you cook. And if you ever watch any chef, on TV and stuff, I love Food Network. It's I love that channel. And HGTV, and soaking it in while we've been here. But you watch them and they take that salt and you're like, pop, pop, pop. They're tossing it in there. See, the difference between salt and spices and herbs is salt doesn't give flavor to anything. Salt enhances the flavor that's naturally there. So when you're using salt as a chef, you're not putting and changing the flavor of whatever it is that you're cooking, the meat, whatever it is you're cooking, you're not changing that flavor, you're enhancing the flavor. And so that's why it says here that you are the salt of the earth. You are here to enhance the flavor or to enhance the aroma of Christ. That's your purpose. That's my purpose, that we're to be the salt of the earth, that we're supposed to be the ones flavoring the earth, flavoring the conversations, changing the atmosphere around us. We're supposed to be the ones that are bringing Christ out, bringing him out in conversations, bringing him out in circumstances. You're that salt. That salt doesn't necessarily change what's there, but it enhances. It'll enhance in a conversation that you're having with somebody, and you decide, no, I'm not going to go down this route in this conversation. I'm going to change this conversation. I'm going to bring in the presence of Christ. I'm going to be the salt here. I'm going to enhance Christ in this moment. That's something that you need to grasp, because that's why it says you are the salt, because you're here to enhance and to show others Christ. So in all the conversations, and that's one thing, and in this trip in particular, it's been kind of wouldn't say rough trip, but it definitely has been a different trip, probably the most difficult trip for us. We come back like every 6 months, and we've been in Mexico for 12 years, and this might have been probably the most awkward, strange trip for us, because almost every conversation we've been in, it's been about COVID, it's been about different things, it's been very political, and it's been very frustrating because I'm trying to, every time, I'm like, let's not talk about all of that. Let's talk about what God's doing. Let's talk about what Christ is doing. And I ask people, what's happening in your life? And I don't want to hear about, well, I'm going to wear this mask and this. No, what's happening in your life? And the sad thing is, maybe because of some of the stuff, the restrictions, you may not feel that anything's happening in your life. You're like, oh, we're just stuck in our homes. We're stuck in this rut. But what's happening, or what should be happening in your life? You are the salt. And it says here, what good is salt if it loses its saltiness? And how can it be made salty again? Well, you got to be around the source. You can't, if you aren't salty, that means you stepped away from the source of that saltiness. So I see a lot of, again, I'm kind of speaking from an outsider looking in now. We've been in Mexico for 12 years, and I feel less and less American all the time. Every time we come back, it's kind of like, whoa, this is way different from how we think. And in our church, the name of our church is Church of Acts, and we've really been progressive in teaching our people to live like the church in Acts lived, to live in faith, to be people of communion with one another, to be in this thing together. We refer to ourselves all the time as family. It's not just in Mexico. A lot of times in churches, it's hey brother, hey sister. They say that all the time. They have no clue what their names are. Even in our colonial, people are like, hey neighbor, how you doing? And have no clue what their neighbors' names are. They've lived next to them for years and have no clue. And when we moved specifically onto the street that we're on right now, we've been there now for 4 years on the street. One thing we felt God say to us is, man, you need to be the salt. And you need to be the light here on the street. Don't worry about the whole colonial. Just concentrate here right now. And that's what we did. And even just making people know each other's names. We lived next to each other for 10 years and had no clue what their names were. And honestly, some of you probably have lived next to people your whole life. You have neighbors and you have no clue what their names are. You smile and you laugh. So I'm guessing that you probably don't know what your neighbors' names are. But as followers of Christ, we should make that a priority to be involved in people's lives and to be an instrument of change, an instrument that brings salt into a very bland world, that we can enhance the natural flavors of this world. The natural flavors of this world is Jesus Christ. He's the creator. So we're supposed to enhance his creation. That means that you can speak into your friends' lives and say, man, I see some good things ahead for you. Man, don't get so down about this, because there's some good things coming. And you can speak that way because you're the salt, and you're taking that. You're enhancing the Jesus that's in them that they don't even know yet. Now, I'm be careful when I say that. What are you saying? You're a Christian. You're a follower of Christ. The presence of God is there within you. As a creation of Christ, everyone has that ability. And what we're trying to do is, man, let's get some salt in this situation and let's bring that out. Because the reality of it is, that's really what your friends want. That's what your families want. They may not know it. If you've ever had a bad steak and a good steak, your whole life you've been eating bad steak. And then, I remember Nancy and I, when we were teenagers, we went to Argentina. And man, I haven't found steak that compares yet to Argentinian steak. And I'm like, man, that is some good steak. I've eaten steak before, I ate steak before. I'm like, nope, that steak, it changed my whole thinking of what steak is. We went to New York a couple of years ago. New York pizza changed my whole view of pizza. I'm just like, dude, this is pizza. I mean, this is so good. You know, and some people say, oh, what about Chicago deep dish? That's not pizza, that's pie. You know, I'm like, it's good, but it's not pizza. And I was like, man, New York pizza. There's certain, when you have it, you're like, man, nothing else will compare. When your friends get a taste of Jesus because of your saltiness, nothing else is going to compare. They're going to be like, man, got a little taste. I want some more. You know, you guys are like spiritual drug dealers. You know, I mean, hey, we live in Mexico. I understand this little. You know, how do you get an addict? Just a little bit at a time. I mean, it's the truth. How do you get somebody that's addicted to Jesus? Give them a little bit at a time. You can't shove it all down their throat at once. You know, I mean, hey, you know, it doesn't work that way. Drug dealers aren't like, here's a pound of Coke, and just shove it down shove it up your nose and just say, have fun with that. You know, it just it doesn't work that way. It's like, you know, here, try this, and oh, you like that? Now here, try that, and oh, you want a little bit something a little bit stronger? Guys, it's the same for us. Man, this is like going a really weird analogy here, but it's the same for us. You give them little tastes. You give them a bump. You give them a taste of Jesus, and they're like, wow, that was pretty good. I like that. I want more. Oh, really? Well, hey, come with me to youth group sometime. Hey, let's would you want to get together and read the Bible? Hey, what about this? Hey, let me tell you about this experience in my life. Hey, we're having a retreat. Would you like to go with us? Hey, how about, and then it's like, oh, okay. Now, how many of you have gone to this church most of your life? Okay, how many of you are like new, fresh meat? Okay, so why are you here? Why?
We're like cousins.
Oh, okay, so, but you got bored, so you're here. Okay, so you're new. Is this your first week? No. Second week. All right. Give them a little taste, right? A little taste. Taste this. Come on. You little dealers. No. But you know, I didn't just show up at a church one day and go, yep, this is what I want. Nancy at the time went to my school, and she invited me to come to youth group and stuff. And like, hey, this is pretty cool. This is what I've been looking for. And I really was on a journey and didn't realize I was on a journey. But then when I started listening to the youth pastors teaching and stuff, I'm like, man, this is it. This is what God's intended for me. This is the plan. And guys, you're the salt. And if you lose your saltiness, you know what? You need to get back to the source. And some of you, maybe that's what this time has been for you. It's been a rough few months. And, you know, and Nicole, even you were saying, you know, we've given up on things. We haven't been faithful in praying things through, or we've forgotten about some things in the past. And maybe for some of you, that's what's happened in the last couple of months. You've just kind of gone on autopilot and just let the world dictate what you do. Well, they tell us we can't do this, and they tell us we can't do that. We have to stay home, and we can't blah, blah, blah. And you've just allowed the world to become one big excuse for you to get lazy in your faith. And so your faith is really, it's not salty anymore. It doesn't have, it can't bring out the natural essence of Jesus anymore, because you really have just kind of sat around and just not put in to your relationship with Jesus. So I challenge you, man, this is not the time to do that. The world is looking for answers. The world is longing for someone that they can look to. They're wanting hope, and they want inspiration, and they want to see something that has an actual truth to it. Because right now in this world, I don't know what truth is as far as the world I do know who the truth is, though. And that's one thing I'm firm on that. And so that's not going to shake me. So be the salt of the world. It says in verse 14 that you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden, and neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others. And I know this is a familiar verse. Maybe you've heard this before. But man, you have to decide, I am not going to let all this stuff hinder and block out the light that's within me. And, it doesn't matter. I know how frustrating it could be. I couldn't even imagine doing school online and not seeing your friends on a daily basis, not being around your friends. But that doesn't mean that your light still can't shine. And it can shine through this even. I mean, it's kind of weird. I personally, that's not my style. I'm very much face-to-face, hands-on. Brother's got a hug. That's me. But for you right now, this is a tool that God's given for you to be able to use. Stay connected as much as you can, because I say this, when all this is said and done and you're able to reconnect, it's not going to seem so foreign. I also want to say to young people, when you get the opportunity, put these things down. If you get opportunity to be face-to-face with somebody, be engaged all the time. It drives me crazy when I see like two young people, they're on their phones, sitting next to each other, talking to each other on their phones. Like, just turn and talk to them. They're like a foot away from you. Oh, wait, excuse me, 6 feet away from you. Practicing social distancing, right? But you're the light of the world, and you can't show people your light if you're not around them. If you just keep yourself holed up into your houses like maybe the government would want you to be, because then your light can't shine anywhere, you can't be effective. Now, you can use this as a tool, but again, you need to be purposeful in everything. For your classes online, do you guys do like Zoom stuff or for meetings? So make sure you're not the one jacking around in the corner of the screen and your teacher's got to say something and calm down or, whatever. You be the best you that you can be and show that to others. Be the best you that God's designed you to be. What's your name? Andres. Jeremiah. You can't be Jeremiah, and you shouldn't try to be. And Jeremiah, you can't be Andres, and you shouldn't try to be. You've got to be the best you that God's designed you to be. You've got to be the light to that circle of influence that God's put you in. I'm guessing, maybe not, but do you have a different group of friends than Jeremiah has? Drastically different? I'm just kind of going on. Okay? So different. Why? Why do you have a different group of friends? Because God planned it that way. You have the friends that you have right now for a reason, for a purpose. And God's put you in a group of friends, and you in a group of friends, and you in a group of friends, and you in a family. And no, but He's giving you each different circles of influence for a reason, for you to shine in that group. And that means that you have to do exactly that, shine. You can't be, and I'm not saying I understand, like personality-wise, like my wife, she's much more of an introvert than I am. But it's because of her faith and her light that I came to the Lord. Yeah. So she didn't have to be, hey, you're all going to hell, and screaming and everything. She just talked to me about her faith. So don't worry. Well, I'm not that. I'm not that. So I really can't. I remember when I was a teenager, we went to a youth conference, and the speaker that was there was this crazy extrovert guy, and he made a comment, how many of you feel called into youth ministry, and I at that time I was like, yeah, man, that's me, and he's like, if you want to be successful in youth ministry, you have to be outgoing like me. You just can't be. And I remember thinking that day, man, I guess I'm not supposed to be a youth pastor or be in youth ministry. And I talked with my youth pastor about it, and he was like, John, am I that way? And I said, no. He's like, do you think I'm a good youth pastor? And I said, yeah, I think you're the best. He's like, so why are you worried about what that guy said? Why? You don't have to be like that guy. You just have to be you and be the best you. And you guys have been given a place of ministry. A place of ministry. And that's when you have to start seeing yourselves as ministers of the gospel now. Okay? It's not Pastor Joe's job to save your friends.
Amen.
It's not Pastor Joe's job to speak to your friends about Jesus. He gets to do that, but that's not his responsibility. It's actually yours. Because you're the one that can speak into their lives more than he can. He's a complete stranger to them.
Yeah.
But you're not. But you're not. He's a weirdo. Look at him. Phenomena. Do, 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 do. They won't understand that reference. It's an old.
I'm with you.
So God's given you that moment to be that light and to be that missionary. That he sent you to those people. Some of you, it's to your family. It's to your friends. It's to maybe some people that are not in your circle of friends. And God's telling you, you know what? You and your friends aren't all that. You need to start reaching out to some of those kids that they don't have a group of friends. And bring them into, you got to understand, your friends, my desire is for your friends not to just be the jocks or not to be, the band geeks or whatever. My desire is for your friends to be those that follow Christ. And so begin to take steps of faith and be the light. And it says in the last verse, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. You don't have to preach. You don't have to stand up in your school cafeteria and begin to, okay, I want to talk to everybody. In Romans, it says, and start rattling off scripture. One of my favorite quotes is always preach the gospel. Sometimes use words. You're the light. You're the salt. It's not what you say. Matter of fact, sometimes I wish Christians would just shut their mouths. I really do. Just shut up. No. Live it. They will know us by our fruit. And right now, the fruit's not looking too well. It's not looking too well. There's a lot, and I'm saying this more from a lot of our conversations have been with adults and Christian adults, and I'm like, what you're preaching is not anything to do with Jesus. Let's throw the political stuff out the door and let's talk about Jesus. Let's get into the Word and see what the Word says. Let's talk about living in faith, not living in fear. Let's talk about expressing love to people instead of hatred. Let's talk about being sacrificial in our relationships rather than always just take. And, young people, I think you have opportunity to do that. And I think it's like God's priming this world, not for a revival. I think a revival will come, but before a revival comes, because revival is basically for the church that has just failed, I think there's going to be a new movement that comes of people just coming to Christ for the very first time. And I think you guys can have a big part of that. I think this church can have a big part of that. I think it's interesting. This morning we spoke at a church in Janesville, and the pastor was my youth pastor. So it's really a special place for us to be able to go back and share. And they're talking in their conversations as a staff. They're like, we need to change things. How we've been doing ministry, it's not what it's supposed to be. And it's so encouraging because kind of being outside of the U.S. and kind of getting to just do what we feel the church is supposed to be, it's refreshing to hear others say, you know what, it's time for us to shake things up. You know, the typical ministry and even, you know, if for some reason the government says you can't meet in big groups, which is kind of what they're saying and have said, but that doesn't mean you can't meet in homes. It doesn't mean you can't meet personally. And so we just have to begin to trust God to put us in places where we can be the light. And most importantly, that they can see in us through our actions, Jesus. That's the most important thing. You guys don't have to know everything about the Bible. I don't. I'm still learning. I've been with Jesus decades, still learning every day. But you know him, and you can begin to show others through your love, through your heart, and how you treat people, how you speak to people respectfully, or how you speak to them in encouraging words. You know, act the opposite of what you see the world doing. And sometimes it's sad to say, sometimes we need to act the opposite in what we see the church doing. You know, and I think that there's a remnant that God is preparing to really take this to a new level, So be the salt, be the light, and let that change the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Change the atmosphere around you. When you step into a room, believe the atmosphere is changing. It's not because of you. It's because who you carry within you. When you step into a room, heads are going to turn. Who's here? And they're not going to see you. They're going to begin to see Jesus. So do that. It's like 6:43, so I want to...
Yeah, let's ask some questions.
Yeah, let's do that. Guys, thank you for letting me share the word. God's word is more important than my word. I understand that, and so I count it a privilege every time. So any questions you guys might have for us and what we do? And Joe's got a question right away.
Yeah, for you, what's like the biggest difference when you talk about coming up here? But what do you think is like the biggest difference when you're like ministering from Americans to Mexicans, like culturally or anything?
It does depend on the situation and the surroundings of the place. I mean, there's times that in places when we are back, we feel real freedom in the Lord to minister, and a lot of it depends on like, say, if we're at a church or something, depend on where the pastor's at. How secure the pastor is in letting us minister helps some. It's really hard to compare because here we're visitors and there we're not. So I do feel that as far as even some authority, we have a little bit more authority even in the spirit realm there than we do here, unless, like if a pastor says, hey, I trust you, and really all the pastors that we work with, that's their attitude. I think there's skepticism in both places. People, it's so religious in Mexico that they're open to spiritual things, but yet they're also not. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like if it's not what they're used to, if it's not in that world, they're like, well, no, I don't think that's something that I want to step into. The families that we have in our congregation, it's been a slow process of really kind of taking them from out of Catholicism or not really having any type of religion that they were really following to where they're at now. I mean, we've been with these 5 families for 2 years, going on 3 years, and it takes time. But I mean, Jesus was with the disciples, it took time, and they still didn't get it all. I mean, sometimes you're like, man, you guys are dumb. I mean, he's performing miracles and walking on water, and you're like, I don't get it. I think we'd get it maybe a little bit quicker than some of the disciples got it. Maybe not. So, I mean, that's it. It's similar in many ways. It just really, honestly, I can say I feel personally that I'm able to minister more efficiently now in Mexico than I was able to even 2-3 years ago. Some of it simply has to do with the language aspect. I've gotten better and better as the time's gone on, and sometimes it was hard for me to minister because my language was limited. And it's the last couple of years is really, I've seen a lot of growth to be able to do that. Sarah is, you wouldn't know that she was American unless you saw her. I mean, if you heard her, she sounds Latino. So, no, she hates to do that. See,
I just need a point of reference.
No. So, I mean, it really beginning to see our people grow in their faith is really awesome. So that's something that, we've been here for 5 weeks. We're ready to get back. I mean, because that's home, and we're missing it, and we're ready to get back and to be where we're supposed to be. So, other questions?
So, what made you guys want to go to Mexico?
Well, it's been a seed was planted within Nancy and I when we were teenagers. We went on mission trips to Nancy went to Paraguay. We both went to Argentina, and we actually thought we were going to maybe be missionaries to Africa because in college I had a lot of friends that were missionary kids to Africa. The first church we were at for 5 years after college, it just seemed to be like a lot of our connections were people that were missionaries to Africa as well. So we thought that was what it was going to be, but mission trips that we took were to Mexico and to inner city Chicago, where it was working with Latinos and Mexicans. When we moved an hour south to a small town in Illinois, huge population of Mexicans, and that's where God put us to really, I guess, water that seed. And I began coaching and a soccer team that was 20, 22 kids, and there was one white kid and one black kid, and the rest were Latinos. And so I had to help learn the language a little bit to communicate with their parents and stuff. I went to Mexico. I had some friends that lived there, went there to a language school to help me with the ministry back in Illinois. And God just said, yeah, I'm preparing you for Mexico. So it was kind of it's been a life journey, but God just makes it very clear. God makes it very clear, and he made it very clear to us. So yeah, we moved there in 2008. Questions? From the quiet section over here. All right.
So, yeah, this looks super dorky. I was going to take it all the way off. I have known John since I moved here. Like within the first week that we got here, he spoke at Milton campus. Jared Mitchell was the youth pastor there. And so our connection is probably somewhat more limited than we'd like, but every time he's here, I just enjoy getting to know him a little bit more and stuff. So really just give it up for him and his family. I really think God is doing some awesome stuff there. I'm just really pumped to see what happens in Mexico. And then, it's just really cool to see that. We've talked a couple of times, and I do want to coordinate getting a trip down there someday. I want to do mission trips all over the world. I just think it's super cool. And I'm trying to learn how to speak Spanish. mostly for selfish reasons, because I'm sick of people coming up to me and speaking Spanish, and I'm like, no. We were at a Mexican restaurant with Ashley and her family, and the waiter started speaking Spanish to me, and I looked at, because Ashley Crumb speaks Spanish, and she's like looking at me like, well, are you gonna answer him? So I was like, no. So it was a good time. So we are going to shift a little bit. Actually,
Do you want to put it up on the screen? I think that this might work if we just.
Yes, that does work. So we're gonna play Kahoot. So go to Kahoot.com. Actually, I'm gonna bring Erica up here because this is her gang. She knows what's going on way more than I do. Give it up for Erica. And as Erica's coming up, just a side note, if you guys want to talk more, John and his family are gonna be hanging out with us after youth group. You guys can ask him any questions that you were too embarrassed to ask in front of everybody else. If anybody at the other campuses has other questions, you can have Matt text our group and we can ask for you and get you the response. With that, I will give it over to Erica.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to just move this a little closer so we can see better. Ah. I'm actually going to move it to the back just because it is a little blurry. Sorry. Oh. Okay, that looks a lot better. Okay, make sure your name is appropriate. Just a little friendly reminder. Wow, we got a lot of people. Some pizza. I wonder who that is. Maybe Colin? Not Cullen. Oh. Katya. Yep, all the campuses. I don't know if Milton is going to play, but definitely Jefferson is in here. Do I need to come back over there, Quinn? Everyone in here? Everyone good? Good? Just give a couple more seconds. So if you're in Jefferson, just make sure you're signing in now. Oh. And that code will always be on the screen, so if you're not signed in, you can always sign in later. Okay, we're going to hit start, and Oh, we have one person here that is still waiting. It's all right. Okay, we're gonna start. Whoa! This is a fall questionnaire. What are the colors of Halloween? We should get this one. Orange, gray, orange and black, black and purple, or purple and orange. It will get harder. told you it was gonna be harder. Sorry, I wanted to start off easy. Ireland. Good job for those 3 people. Oh! What was the first wrapped penny candy in America? Blow Pops, Tootsie Rolls, Jawbreakers, or gum? I wonder. You get right here for your dancing the entire time. Tootsie Rolls! Good job. Ooh. What is the fear of Halloween? What phobia? What do you think? Call him down to right, everyone. Ashley Bashy in the lead. Katya came back in second. Nice job. Nice job, cool guy. What did trick-or-treaters have to do to get their candy originally? Sing, steal it, dance, or tell a joke? I hope it's not steal it. Dance! They had to dance!
Wow, I'm doing so bad.
I wonder if we should change it up and make people dance this year.
I've been dancing the whole time.
What is another name for Halloween in some places? Pumpkin night, cabbage night, candy night, dark night?
Yes, it is.
I'm not sure. Cabbage night! Good job, David. What was the first jack-o'-lantern made of? Mud? Pumpkin? Watermelon?
Well done.
Good job. Let's see who's in the lead.
Me.
Oh.
I'm not crying.
How much did the biggest pumpkin weigh? Whoa, those are some big numbers.
Actually, no, it's the answer. I mean, I don't know, I can't. Hey, it's all good fast. You know.
Whoa, 836 pounds.
Actually, better go down.
Oh, Katya! Back in the lead. Halloween has its roots in agriculture. True or false?
Why not?
Whoa, 50%. And let's see what this did to the leaderboard. Whoa! Halloween is the biggest grossing commercial holiday. True or false? self-proclaimed Halloween capital of the world? What are we thinking? Who cares about Halloween the most? Ooh. 2 answers for that one.
Yeah, third place. Go.
Cullen is third place. He's a cool guy, everyone. In case you didn't know. What day is Halloween? Okay, this is back to the easy. What day? I'll give you a hint. Green is not the answer. There we go.
No.
Did you get it wrong? What?
I was homeschooled. I never celebrated Halloween.
Wow. Quinn, did you know when Halloween is?
31st.
There we go. Okay. Oh, when is the next full moon supposed to occur on Halloween? What year? Oh, this year, of course. 2020. He's one of our leaders. What color are the black cats of the UK? I don't know, is it?
Black's not on the answer board.
It's a trick question. It is white. One person got it right. Good job. Who that one person was? Really? Okay. What is the number one choice of candy on Halloween? Reese's, Milky Way, Snickers, Twix?
That's a preference question.
Well, like how many is being bought? Like what candy do you buy more?
I don't know why.
They should shake up the leaderboard. There we go. 2 more questions. What is the name of Charlie Brown episode about Halloween? Do you guys know what Charlie Brown is? Good.
I love the Charlie Brown.
Me too.
You can thank me for that.
The Great Pumpkin. Wow. Good job, everyone. Last question.
I'm gonna lose.
When is/was the first day of fall?
Oh, no. Maybe not.
Good job. Okay, the winners are in 3rd place, Ashy Bashy from Whitewater. 2nd place, our speaker up to midnight. And 1st place, you can represent one of our leaders in Jefferson.
Those kids don't know nothing.
He knows all about fall, so if you have any other questions about fall, just talk to Davey. Okay, thanks for playing our fun game. Yeah, and don't forget to take your snack packs. Nope, no announcements.
Right now, there will be announcements next week.
Announcements next week, so buckle up, stay tuned.
Sure.